I'm so bored of Illinois. Much better. Hello, and welcome to a very special road trip edition of Roamin with the Lama. I am at 10,000 feet right now, dispersed camping off of St. John Trail, just west of Montezuma, Colorado. In this episode, we're going to be doing some off-roading with my Ram Rebel. We're going to be taking the Marlin 6 on some mountain bike trails. Let's kick the show off with a ride up St. John Trail. At the end of Montezuma Road is Montezuma, Colorado. A very small mountain town, population 65. It has no paved roads and a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit through town, with 5-mile-an-hour speed bumps every few hundred feet. Here you'll find the start of St. John Trail. Heading southwest from town, the trail quickly becomes a 4x4 trail. Nothing too intense, just enough loose rocks and washouts to keep your attention on the trail and not the scenery. Just 0.4 of a mile in is the first of two tight switchbacks. Both have large rocks and washouts to navigate. The wheelbase of the Rebel meant a multi-point turn was required. Here at 0.6 of a mile is a dispersed camping site I called home for my stay here. Up to this point was the end of my daily commute from the Dillon Keystone area where I did most of my mountain biking. According to Onyx Off-Road, this trail is rated difficult with a technical rating of 5 out of 10. That rating and the fact that this was my first time up this trail, or any Colorado off-road trail for that matter, I took things at a very chill pace. Early on, this trail is tame compared to what I would soon encounter. But again, this being my first real mountain trail, every large rock in the road looked like potential damage to the underside of the truck, tires, or running boards. Yes, the Rebel does have skid plates, but that didn't mean I wanted to go bashing them up if I could avoid it. Here, at 1.4 miles in, are some remains of what was part of the mining complex for which this trail is named. Just after the St. John mine ruins is a T intersection. The entrance road to the mine is on the left. It's gated. A hard turn to the right is the continuation of the trail. Right after this turn is the first stream crossing. I'll be making my first mistake here. The washouts on the right really weren't as deep as they appeared from the driver's seat, but I chose to avoid them and take on the rock on the left. The sound you're about to hear isn't pleasant. Thankfully, it sounded worse than it was. I had just hit the plastic mudguards behind the front and rear tires. In hindsight, I should have removed these before this run. When I went out to check for damage, I looked back over the stream and realized how easy the line of the right could have been. Lesson learned, when in doubt, get out and walk the obstacle. Immediately after the creek crossing, the trail gets rougher. What were just rocks on the road are now becoming boulders on the road. So I took it slow and careful. After all, it's not a race, it's a journey. The trail is now also decreasing in width, giving me less options as to what line I can take to navigate obstacles. The scraping sounds here aren't the side of the truck, just a door-mounted camera catching a few branches. As a first-timer on a difficult trail, the now larger rocks did intimidate. I'm not sure if it was an optical illusion or the fact that I'm not used to seeing such large objects in my path, or a combination of both. But many rocks in the center of the trail looked taller than my truck's clearance, and the rocks in my tire line all looked like they could cause a puncture. So I started taking on some rocks very slowly to get a better feel for my clearances and capabilities.
Well, this is skinny for a half-ton truck.
A half-ton truck does feel like 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag through this section. But I get through it remarkably unscathed, with just a couple Colorado pinstripes in the clear coat on the passenger side. Both were easily buffed out upon my return home. As time goes on, I'm starting to get a better feel for which rocks I can straddle, which rocks I should put a tire on, and which rocks to avoid altogether. The further I drive, the more confident I feel in the Rebel's capability and my decision making. This beautiful open area, surrounded by aspen pines and ending with a stream crossing, marks the approximate halfway point in both distance and elevation gain to Glacier Mountain. I'm awe-inspired by my surroundings, but I'm also feeling a bit vulnerable knowing I'm out here alone with no cell service, doing something that has the potential to be very hazardous. This was the only other vehicle I've seen so far. And they seem none too pleased with my pace. But I won't let that bother me. I'm keeping the mindset of taking things slow and deliberate while still enjoying my first real Colorado trail. If I have a regret, it's that I didn't stop more often to just enjoy my surroundings. Granted, there weren't a lot of places to pull to the side and park, but there wasn't a lot of traffic. Doing a trail like this takes concentration, and it was a little stressful at times. So just pausing every now and then and taking in the view to regain my center and remind me of the reason I'm doing this, which is getting to places only a few types of vehicles can do, and seeing things only a few people can get to see. Next time out, I'll make sure to pause more often. So far, I've been very surprised by the fact I haven't seen any wildlife. Not sure if it's because I'm so focused on the trail or that the sound of tires on rocks in a Hemi V8 keeps the critters away. Around the 3-mile mark, the aspen pines start thinning out as the tree line approaches. The trail is smoothing out just a bit, but there are still enough obstacles here and there to keep the focus on the driving.
Can you imagine living up here?
Just at the edge of the tree line can be seen the remains of the Wild Irishman mine off to the left of the trail. Again, this would have been a perfect place to park and explore for a bit longer than it took to do this camera pan. Just after the Wild Irishman mine comes the final ascent to the apex of Glacier Mountain. Once above the tree line, a series of switchbacks mark the steepest portion of this trail. This climb is complicated by some large rocks that need to be navigated. Four-wheel drive low is helpful here. And even though I was stuck for a bit, I'm able to get through without engaging the rear locker. For what is technically a shelf road, this section isn't terribly intimidating, with ample shoulder to the left and the slope of the drop-off not being too steep. After the last switchback, the final climb is relatively easy compared to everything I've done previously. This Y intersection at 3.7 miles is unmarked. To the right, the St. John Trail continues. To the left is General Teller Road. This heads to the top of Glacier Mountain. Cresting the apex of the climb gives you an indescribable feeling. The beauty of the 360-degree view, the sense of accomplishment of making this run, and the thin, crisp mountain air at 12,000 feet is more than exhilarating.
The Rebel did great. Not a scratch on any of the skid plates. Felt confident the whole way through, and I just can't say enough about it. It's a stock Rebel. It's not jacked up. It doesn't have 35s on it. That's it for up here. I'm going to enjoy the view and have a snack. So that said, we'll continue the episode.
If you'd like to see that entire trail, I'll put a link here and in the description below. Now let's take a more conventional mountain road to Frisco to take a ride on the Marlin 6 around the Frisco Peninsula. Quick note, there's going to be a running theme through this next ride, and all the rides up here for that matter.
Altitude, altitude, altitude.
Coming from Chicago at 700 feet above sea level, 9,000 feet up is a huge difference. I rode over 200 hours back home, followed all the nutritional advice, and hydrated like crazy in preparation for these high altitude rides. But as I soon find out, if you don't train up here, it's hard to perform up here. So you're going to hear a lot of heavy breathing, and there's going to be a lot of stops on climbs.
Thank you. Morning.
To get to the Lakeshore Loop, I'm starting from the parking lot near the Frisco Adventure Park, running southwest on the Dillon Reservoir Recreation Path. As I speed downhill on this paved section, I miss the right turn onto the disc golf double track just a quarter mile into the ride. With a quick double check of my map, I correct course and start heading north to the official start of the Lakeside Trail.
At 0.6 of a mile, the single track starts, as does the views across the Dillon Reservoir. This first portion winds through small pine trees. It's a great flow section with just the occasional roots and rocks to contend with.
Rider!
I'm slowing down here a bit through this tight section with blind turns. After all, this is a two-way trail. Here, the trail passes by a recreational beach area. It wasn't that crowded, but I can see this area getting very congested during busy weekends.
Heads up, heads up. Morning.
Just after the beach area, the trail starts to climb, and I find myself on a small shelf. Nothing too sketchy, but I don't want to miss left. At around 1.8 miles, the trail enters a campground. Even though not well marked, this looks like a logical place for the trail to continue. This next section is not a steep climb, but is the first sustained climb I've encountered so far.
Didn't see that coming.
This is where the altitude starts to affect me. It's not like being winded, that I can push through. It's more like feeling suffocated. No matter how hard I breathe, I feel like I'm not getting any air. I'm also starting to hyperventilate, and my legs are on fire from lactic acid. Luckily, I hit a T intersection that is unmarked. This gives me a chance to pause and catch my breath while I check my map. With breath caught, I continue on. But encounter another climb just a short while later. Forgivingly, it's short-lived. And a nice downhill section brings me back towards the lakeshore. Once at the shore, there's a series of up and down sections as the trail hugs the shoreline. At about 2.6 miles, I start up another sustained climb. This perfectly timed lookout gives me an excuse to stop for a bit. With 5 minutes rest and some much needed hydration, I'm ready to push on. I'm glad I rested, as this section around the northern tip of the peninsula is a series of climbs and drops which contains some of the roughest spots I've encountered so far. As the trail heads back south, it levels out and smooths out quite a bit as it winds along the shoreline. Just under 3.4 miles, the trail turns inland with a stretch of whoops that flow through the pines. At this point, I start to hear a rubbing noise from my front tire. Turns out my front axle nut worked its way loose.
Holy shit. I'm lucky I didn't lose my front tire. Disaster averted.
I'm bummed because I was having a blast in this section. I'm glad I caught the loose axle when I did. The trail gets much rougher after the fix.
Getting better at picking lines. My first instinct would have killed me. Ran out of gear. Needed to hit that one with momentum.
With knowledge, yeah.
Yep, I didn't know it was coming. Whew.
I was starting to get a bit winded and dizzy again when on cue,
Yay.
a nice descending section helped me avoid another stop.
Nice little beach for one.
At 4.5 miles, the trail turns inland, and I start a sustained climb to the highest point of this ride. A third of the way up, I need another break. Here, I really started questioning myself. Am I really out of shape? I can ride 30 miles nonstop back home. It's gotta be the
Altitude, altitude, altitude.
yeah, that must be it.
How you doing?
After a short break, I think I'm ready for the final climb. I'm starting strong, but
Yeah.
I make it to the apex of the climb. But at 5.25 miles in, I feel like I've ridden 20, all uphill. The legs are still strong, but they are on fire with lactic acid. Good news is, it's all downhill from here. At around 5.4 miles, the single track ends at the Dillon Reservoir path. Knowing these trails aren't well marked, I scanned for the final flow section my map indicates is coming. I couldn't find it. At this intersection, I can see the parking lot where I started from. So instead of doubling back to look for that last section of single track, I just headed back to the lot. I was really bummed out that after all that pedaling through what was essentially an oxygen deprivation tank, I didn't get Deadpool's superpowers. After the long coast downhill, I recover quite quickly, mending my shattered ego by confirming my stops were due to the
Altitude, altitude, altitude.
Who's up for another ride? As always, here's a link to the entire ride around the Frisco Peninsula, and I'll put one in the description below. Now I'm headed around the north side of the Dillon Reservoir to try the Snake River Bluffs Trail. There is no trailhead for Snake River Bluffs. You have to park about a mile away at the Snake River Inlet and pedal to it via the Snake River Recreation Trail. Here at Elk Drive, I head across the 4-lane Highway 6. Riding up the shoulder, I'm looking for the first single track I see to my left. This should be the Scrappy Trail that will connect me to Snake River Bluffs. And here it is. This trail quickly becomes a continuous climb. I'm in too high a gear. There will be many breaks, 5 to be exact, as the trail goes up 200 feet over the next 0.8 of a mile. At this intersection, the Scrappy Trail continues to the right. The Snake River Bluffs Trail starts here to the left. At this point, I'm at an 8-degree grade, a little too much for my Flatlander lungs. probably a bad place to stop. There we go. That's a big hill. You ready? Near the end of the climb, I find a little reprieve from the uphill grinding. After the apex of the climb is an intersection. To the left is the Buzztail Trail. Continue straight to Snake River Bluffs downhill section. At this point, I wanted to launch the Skydio 2 for some cool drone shots of the downhill. But after checking my pre-flight app, I found that I was in a wilderness zone. No go for flight. A chesty is all I'm gonna get. Where'd you come from? I'm just going to let the downhill play out. It's pretty quick. So let's go downhill. Ready? Here comes the fun part. Shot me over the handlebars. This is for all the hot doggers. Leave that to the younger folk. Oh, it jumps out through there. More uphill. was fun. And worth the climb for sure. At this intersection, I spot a tunnel that will take me under Highway 6. Granted, I took it at grandpa speed, but I guess it really wasn't grandpa speed. I guess it was more like 57-year-old who still got a kid to put through college speed. On the other side, I spot the Dillon Reservoir Recreation Trail. Now it was just an easy pedal back to the truck. I am ready for a good night's sleep. What a great start to this trip. I really hope you enjoyed coming with me. In part 2 of this special road trip edition, we'll be heading back to Glacier Mountain. I'll take you back down to Montezuma on the remainder of the St. John's Trail, where I encounter some white-knuckle descents, then finish the journey on the ever-scenic Deer Creek Trail. I'll take the Marlin 6 to a single-track loop called As the Raven Flies, and I'll take you on a bucket list mountain hike. So hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified as soon as that episode is uploaded. Until then, keep biking, keep wheeling, and keep roaming with the Lama.